Tonight is very exciting for all of us because we're here to listen to the wonderful David Mitchell.
Oh, you're too kind.
Round of applause.
Thank you, really. Thanks.
Now, I'm sure you're all rusted-on fans and will have assiduously read his entire oeuvre, which of course includes the universally adored, mega-selling, Man Booker-nominated Cloud Atlas, or perhaps you've read Ghostwritten, Number 9 Dream, Black Swan Green, The Thousand Summers of Joseph Disut, and perhaps...
Sorry, it's Thousand Autumns.
Oh, Thousand Autumns. What did I say? Springs.
It's not as impressive as a radio show host in the States who hadn't heard of me and just saw Black Swan Green and called it Black Susan Green. I said, one day I'm going to write that book.
Black Susan.
Black Susan Green.
But the book we're going to be talking about tonight, which is your latest book, is another Booker contender, The Bone Clocks. But just before we start, I have to say, I respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting today on the traditional lands of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to the elders, past and present, and the elders from other communities who may be here today. Now, David, I want to start this conversation on a slightly serious note.
Sure.
That was an acknowledgement to country, which we do as a sort of standard thing here in Australia. And in fact, in this new book of yours, there is a part set in Perth where, in a way, you acknowledge country. You were at another Writers' Festival event in Perth, and at some point, I think you went to Rottnest Island.
I did, yes.
And when you went there, it really got to you, didn't it?
It did. I'm a little bit reticent to talk about it just because I'm aware there are political tectonic plates that I basically don't know the existence of, and I feel like a blundering Englishman who just walks into the middle of what might be, and what I'm sure is, deep and fraught and complex and subtle
scenario or a landscape.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so to, in a way, even to talk about it is almost awkward.
But you felt ghosts, didn't you? Or you felt a presence when you were there?
Yes. I felt a little bit like I'd gone to the scene of a... It's only happened twice in my life, apart from Rottnest, where I arrive or I'm at a place and... because of what has happened there, or the real question is, would I feel it if I didn't know? That's the thing.
Did you know?
Not before, only afterwards.
So you went there and you felt something, and then afterwards you had conversations with people like Kim Scott, author of Dead Man Dance.
Indeed.
And he's a Noongar elder and a fabulous author, and you had a big conversation with him about what had gone on there.
Yeah.
And
that was some years later, but Gail Norman told me about the history of Rottnest, in fact. And so yes, I felt what I felt when I went to the Old Bailey in London, and there's a place where they used to hang people, and the hairs went up on my arms, and it's slightly hard to breathe. And I felt the same when I went to a concentration, or the site of a concentration camp in Poland as well.
Right.
And
I suppose I'm asking you is because I feel that maybe you, because of your whole genre is about you transverse time, place, space, and time is a big thing for you. So I wonder if you felt that there was a kind of a truth there, or a sense of time that was bigger than the banal everyday, and you felt that there was a sort of story there, or you felt the stories in the land somehow.
There's two things there. One is, we talk about time, but time is maybe a plural concept. Actually, we exist in times. There is more than one time. There's a lifespan. There's the time of nation state, like Australia. There's maybe deep time. to do with a sort of a species time that our DNA travels down. Maybe there's a geological time. Apparently, I can't remember the name of it, but there's a cycle which describes the time between all the land on Earth being a supercontinent, as it was in the Pangea days, and it splits up and various continents go around, but they come together again in the far, far future into another supercontinent. This has happened about 5 times, apparently, in the history of Earth. That sort of deep, deep time. So there's a sort of planetary time as well. Then there's the time of whatever framework we're caught in, which, for example, like this event here. And so there's all these times that sort of overlay each other. That's one thing I wanted to say in response to what you said, and the other has completely flown from my mind, so it probably wasn't that profound.
All right, well, let's
I remember.
Yes.
Can trauma
Yes.
impact place? Can something that happened on a place impact it or not? I feel a little bit overly new agey and mystical in saying yes. Slightly out of my comfort zone, but
something happened, didn't it? Something happened. You felt something.
I can't say it doesn't. I don't want to say, no, it's impossible, that's just ridiculous, that's just people imagining it after the fact. I don't believe that either. I'm kind of agnostic on this, as I am on most things, really.
Well, let's talk about the bone clocks, because that was a big way to start. I'm sorry, we seem to have dived into deep time.
No, it's good stuff. I like thinking about those things.
Well, I heard that you say that you write novellas, and you have a kind of tendency to, well, particularly with Cloud Atlas and with this new book, Bone Clocks. Both books they're like a number of stories, and you glue them together in interesting ways. In the Bone Clocks, you glue it together with the character Holly Sykes. Why have you decided to use that method to string a novel together? Do you get bored easily or something?
Slightly embarrassing confession, but I think I'm a bit of a fake novelist. They're too big for my somewhat limited brain to be able to hold all at once. I can handle novellas, however. I've only fairly recently noticed this, but I've never really written a novel. I've written novellas or short stories that are kind of assembled.
Like a Rubik's Cube.
Or Lego.
Dominoes, maybe.
Could be.
Yeah.
And I like the narrative length of a novella, about 100 to 150 pages. It's long enough to really get going, but short enough to be its own a getaway car from the cops of boredom.
Have you ever thought about just taking one and sticking with it?
I've done that this time. To my surprise, not to mention my editor's surprise, who's used to waiting every World Cup before I hand in a new manuscript. I've written a very short novel, which is kind of a novella.
A long novella.
It's a long novella. It's really a novella, but no one wants to put that on the cover because it won't sell. So this is a short novel, and that's coming out this October.
Okay. And what character is it?
What?
Is it a particular character? One of the characters?
It's grown out of a Twitter story that I wrote last year.
Yes, I heard about the Twitter story.
And it sprouted tentacles, and so I'm publishing that in a more traditional form.
Okay. And I've also heard you say that your books are like Uber novels, where there's a sort of story.
That sounds so pretentious. It's
I kind of like that idea. It's this constant, eternal recurrence is another word that I heard associated with you.
Be careful, aspiring writers, what you say to journalists really early on, because it really sticks. And if you're Harold Pinter, you can make it work for you. So like kind of the weasel under the drinks cabinet is what he said. The stoat under the drinks cabinet. But the Uber novel, and if you say it in Germany, you're doomed because they love it, and it's sort of super glued to you forever. the Uber novel. Ooh! There's
What does it mean to you? I mean, apart from being German for pretension.
It's a world that I add on to, novel by novel.
Yep.
It's the book that each of my individual novels, which are standalone, and I want you to be able to read them without having read a single word that I've ever written elsewhere, and for them still to work. But it's a novel which all of my individual novels are individual chapters of, that I hope I can keep writing until I drop, hopefully some years from now. But 47, time's ticking on, you know.
Well, there is a lot of the same themes. Occasionally the same characters come back.
Yeah.
Scenarios emerge again across different centuries.
Yeah.
So there's a sense that there is this word, eternal recurrence. I think I read that just immediately after I read Uber novel. So
I nicked that from Nietzsche, but if you're going to go shoplifting, then shoplifting from kind of the Nietzsche department store is a pretty good place to nick stuff from. Yeah, it was just his idea that we live the same life again and again and again. Yeah. Not actually metaphorically, not in a transmigration of soul sense. Literally, the universe is repeating itself again and again, which in some ways is consoling, because death's
horrifying.
Not the end. But in some ways it's quite horrifying, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a rather dark twist on a Buddhist reincarnational view, which is more like Groundhog Day, where you do get another life, but you get the chance to do a better job of it this time around. With Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, you don't.
Oh, okay.
So watch it.
There's slips, and you can go so far wrong. Yeah. Let's talk about Holly Sykes. Now, I believe she's the central character in this book, and we begin with her story, and she is part of the story all the way through. She's the same age as you, isn't she? Yeah, she's exactly the same age. I think she's got the same birthday, as has Jason Taylor in Black Swan Green, in fact. It's sort of because... She's you, really, isn't she?
No, it's because I'm rubbish at maths, and if you have the same birthday, I always know how old she is, and I kind of know where everything is. I know what's on the radio. I know what food is in the fridge.
Yep.
And I'm doing enough research as it is, thank you very much. And at least if we have the same birthday, I don't have to research what's going on in the world.
That's right.
So it's kind of sloth. It's not the stoat under the drinks cabinet, it's the sloth under the drinks cabinet.
But do you find it difficult? I mean, like, she is the same age as you, but she's... Well, when we meet her, she's a young punk, and she's living in England. I mean,
Gravesend.
And she's at Gravesend.
Grungy end of London.
Pretty grungy. Yeah. She lives in a pub with her dad and her mum and her little brother.
Yeah, sister.
But she's nothing like you, so you have to create this entire character. That is quite different, even though she may have the same tastes as you. Did she? Some
of the same tastes, at least in Talking Heads albums.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking that she might have liked Talking Heads like you do. Now, she's a lovely character.
Thank you.
And I think it's interesting to see how she evolves. And then, of course, if she is you, then you have to imagine yourself, because she, not to give anything too much away, but she does reoccur as an old woman. So then you have to imagine her and yourself, perhaps,
myself,
as someone much older.
Possibly not, but...
A world that is much older, that she's in.
Yeah. It's my job. I have to imagine people who I am not.
Yeah.
Based on.
And if you can't, you're in trouble, aren't you? Really.
That wasn't supposed to be witty, but thank you. I'm glad you thought it was. I've actually been trying to make you laugh all evening and have totally failed. But then the one time I wasn't, it worked. All characters are combinations of traits of yourself and traits of people who...
Do you watch people? Do you go to pubs and watch people?
That's also my job, First one or two books you don't need to, because you've got enough in the compost heap to be able to draw the nutrients you need from that. But after the second or third book, actually, you have to start thinking a bit like an interviewer or a journalist. You need to gently get the good stuff out of people and their lives and their experiences without them knowing you're doing it, kind of.
Sneaky, yeah.
Subtly. Or giving people opportunities to express themselves.
Well, my favourite character, can I say, in your book is the writer called Crispin Hershey. Now, is that not a fantastic name for a writer?
Well, thank you.
Crispin Hershey.
Hershey's that American chocolate that's a little bit too sweet for its own good. It's a bit too sweet and waxy. And so, although Hershey isn't that sweet, now I can think of it.
Well,
I keep interrupting you.
He has a nemesis whose name is Richard Cheeseman, who is a critic. Now think about that. Richard Cheeseman, critic, and Crispin Hershey is the writer.
I'm saying nothing.
Say nothing.
Yeah.
He's the former wild child of British letters. Is he based on anyone we might know?
No.
He has a very famous father.
But his father's a filmmaker, not a writer.
Oh, so we're completely off the track with that one then.
Completely, yeah. No. It's essentially me.
It's you, okay.
Or me as I would be if I didn't have a wife who keeps me humble.
He's a rather unpleasant but hilarious character at first.
You.
I mean, I really liked him because he was so naughty and funny, but he does become more human as we go on.
That's what Holly does. She doesn't know she does it.
He meets up with Holly, I have to say. He meets up with Holly. Remember Holly? She's the one that everything revolves around, yeah.
She offers these rather flawed, imperfect men a chance of
redemption.
A redemption, yeah. And Hugo kind of rejects that chance. Ed, her partner, kind of accepts it, but he's too much of a war junkie to completely accept it. And Crispin, he's on the way, but then something happens which interrupts his...
Are we allowed to say what he does?
Ladder to enlightenment.
Are we allowed to say what? He has a review written by Richard Cheeseman.
Oh, sure.
That is devastating. He had a novel. What was it called? Desiccated Embryos.
Yeah.
That thrust him into the limelight, and it was vastly well received and everything. And then he writes another book, but the second book is not so well received. In fact, Richard Cheeseman does a terrible review of it, and he feels that his entire demise is because of Richard Cheeseman's review.
That's right.
So he enacts revenge on him. We shan't say, perhaps.
We won't say, but it involves a little packet of cocaine, a knife, a suitcase, the
and
inserting of the same, and then an anonymous phone call to the Heathrow drugs authorities. But unfortunately, the Colombian law enforcement agencies get him first. But apart from that, I won't say a word.
So you get the idea.
And any suggestion that it's a kind of revenge, wet dream, fantasy is utterly groundless.
There's another revenge fantasy, I think, in this book of yours, where Crispin is actually in Perth at the Writers' Festival. He's on a panel with a woman called Dr. Afra Booth, and her paper is Pale and Male and Stale, the deconstruction of the post-feminist straw dolls in the new phallic fiction. And he's on this panel with her, and she's been speaking for 45 minutes, and he gets a bit sick of her, really, doesn't he? And they have this fabulous run-in.
Oh, thank you. It was fun to write, but again, aimed at nobody in particular. And I hope it's kind of clear that both parties are equally guilty.
They are.
He is as out of order as she is. So.
Well, he calls her a blob of trans fat, and she calls him a rank-fetid misogynist. So they're getting down and dirty at the Perth Writers' Festival. I
was having a bad day, but not at Perth Writers' Festival, which was pure joy. I mean it. It was really nice.
But there is
so
always
careful the impressions you give these days, because people tweet and then it goes out, and Perth Festival, which is lovely, will send their heavies round.
But I think people here have probably been to Writers' Festivals and they've thought, oh, if only something would happen. Anyway, she eventually gets their comeuppance when he says that she was caught buying a Dan Brown novel at an airport. Okay, so I would really like you to read, if you wouldn't mind, a little excerpt from the Crispin Hershey segment, because I just think it is so much fun.
Thank you very much. Dan, is it okay if I stand up for this? Right, thanks. I can't sit down and read. It's like being in a straitjacket a little bit. It's the 13th of December, 2020, which is on its way quicker than you think. And yeah, I'm Crispin Hershey. I'm a white male British novelist about my age. You don't have to. It's me.
Pale male, but not so.
And in the first time we meet him at Hay on Wye in 2015, oddly enough, I've got an invitation to Hay on Wye this year, and the next year, in fact, he goes to Iceland, and I've got an invitation to Iceland. So I've sort of written my way around the world. Fabulous way of getting invitations out of people, actually. If I'd thought of it, I'd have done it years ago. It's 2020, and yeah, the first time we meet him, he says, teaching? Oh, I'm never going to teach, I'm an artist. But we find him in 2020 when his fortune has waned a little bit, and he's teaching in upstate New York at a campus loosely based on Bard College, if anyone knows it, which is a lovely place. And he is thinking this, I'll just jump straight in. The Key by Junichiro Tanizaki, that's the one. But having found the title in my cupboard under the stairs of once-read books, The Mind of Crispin Hershey, he refers to himself in the third person, and that's always a bad sign, isn't it? The Mind of Crispin Hershey drifts away from Devon Kim Ashkenazi's novel in progress, Across the Wide Ocean, 3 generations of abused women from Busan to Brooklyn. I know it's happening, but I feel powerless to stop it. Up, up and away my mind rises through the ceiling tiles and roofing slates, over the bunker where the English department has been temporarily housed since 1978. Espy the theatre's curvaceous roof by Frank Gehry, skim over the Lego-like accommodation blocks, circle the Gothic chapel from Lincoln's era, tumble amid the glass and steel science buildings up to the President's House, red-bricked, gabled, ivy-veined, through the Lich Gate to the cemetery where Blythewood College lifers turn into trees at the speed of worms and roots, and up the highest tree of all spirals, Hershey's absent mind, known only unto squirrels and crows. The Hudson River stately winds between the Catskills' pigeon toes. A train's revealed, a train's obscured, a quote around a broken cup. I like to see it lap the miles and lick the valleys up. Google Earth-like soars his mind through clouds where snowstorms brew. New York State has dropped away and Massachusetts flew, and Newfoundland is ice-entombed and Rockall Gulbishatten, where no eye sees the lightning flash its momentary pattern. Crispin, it's Devon Kim Ashkenazi. Are you okay? My postgrad's faces suggest it was a prolonged zone-out. Yes, I was recalling a Tanizaki novel that does wonderful things with a similar diary narrative to yours, Devon. The Key. It could save you from reinventing the wheel. But generally, I hand her back a manuscript. Good progress. My only cavil is the violation scene. Still a little adverb-rich, I felt. Fine. Devon uses a breezy tone to prove she's unoffended. The violation in the flower shop or the violation in the motel? The one in the car wash. Adverbs are cholesterol in the veins of prose. Halve your adverbs and your prose pumps twice as well. Pens scratch. Oh, and beware the verb seem. It's a textual mumble. And grade every simile and metaphor from 1 star to 5 and remove any 3s or below. It hurts when you operate, but afterwards you feel much better. Japheth Solomon, another student, author of In God's Country, a Mormon Bildungsroman in progress about a Utah boy escaping to a liberal East Coast college where sex, dope, and a creative writing program provoke existential angst, asks, I wish I could do an American accent, but I can't, it'll sound embarrassing. What if we can't decide if a metaphor's a 3 or a 4? If you can't decide, Japheth, it's only a 3. Marza Kolofsky, author of Horsehead Nebula, a utopia about life after a plague destroys every male on Earth, raises her hand. Got any holiday assignments, Crispin? Yes. Compose 5 letters from 5 leading characters to yourself. Does everyone know what a letter is? It's a paper email, answers Louis Baranquilla. I wrote this years ago, and I've never read this section. Suzanne suggested I read it in the green room just now, so bear with me, because I can't actually pronounce the names that I chose. It's a paper email, answers Louis Baranquilla, author of The Creepy Guy in the Yoga Class, about a creepy guy in a yoga class. My pre-internet credentials are an ongoing joke. So what you put into these letters? Your characters' potted life histories, whom or what your characters love and despise, details on education, employment, finances, political affiliations, social class, fears, skeletons in cupboard, addictions, biggest regret, believer, agnostic or atheist. How afraid of dying are they? And then I think of Holly. I suppress a sigh and push on. Have they ever seen a corpse or a ghost? Sexuality, glass half empty, glass half full, glass too small, snazzy or scruffy dresses? It's a letter, so consider their use of language. Would they say mellifluous or a sharp talker, foul-mouthed or profanity averse? Record the phrases they unknowingly overuse. When did they last cry? Can they see another person's point of view? Only 1/10 of what you write will make it into your manuscript, but when you knock on that 10th, I rap my knuckles on the table. You'll hear oaken solidity, not sawdust and glue. Celia? Seems... Celia Holt, author of a thriller named The Ice Pick Man about triad gangs versus Taliban cells in Vancouver, scrunches her face. Seems kind of deranged to actually write letters to yourself. No, it's agreed. I agree, Celia. A writer flirts with schizophrenia, nurtures synesthesia, and embraces obsessive-compulsive disorder. Your art feeds on you, your soul, and yes, to a degree, your art feeds on your sanity. Writing novels worth reading will bugger up your mind, jeopardize your relationships, and distend your life. You have been warned. Thank you. Oh, thanks, that worked. Thank you.
Well, so, writing buggers up your mind, jeopardises your relationships, distends your life.
It's become really embarrassing. I've forgotten what distends mean. It kind of mean make misshapen.
Yes.
Yeah? It's a whoosh. Yeah, okay.
But do you feel that's true as a writer? Do you feel that your life is pulled apart by your work?
Getting into risky territory, because when writers start moaning about getting published and saying, oh, it's so hard. No, I mean...
You haven't got that problem, though. You can't moan about that.
Not at all.
No,
and it's really rude to pretty much most of the population kind of on Earth to moan. No, sort of... I love my job, and I love writing, and I love making sentences and putting my word nerdery to good use, or to constructive use. However, you do need an understanding partner. And if you have kids, then you need them to be understanding as well. Especially when you have loud conversations in the shower between your characters, which I'm afraid I do. So that's distending your life. Bugger up your relationships. What was the other one?
Bugger up your mind.
Bugger up your mind. This is sort of a question for other people, I suppose. But he's exaggerating, as he often does. But it is a case of needing to nourish and feed those aspects of your mind which maybe in other contexts, if you were doing other jobs, leading other lives, you would work on controlling and toning down more. But yeah, I have no complaints. I've been really fortunate.
Let's talk about the sci-fi genre, because that's obviously your oeuvre. Now, some of your critics have suggested that you haven't managed, but in this book particularly, to give the supernatural elements quite the same blood and flesh as the real-life characters. Do you think that's fair? Or is it a difficult thing to do? Because, of course, real-life people like Holly, same age as you, Crispin, writer, you can understand them. But when you are creating a character that is actually a complete work of imagination, how difficult is it to make them come to life?
Maybe they're right, maybe I haven't. Or maybe it's an impossible task to really describe, in the case of the book, an immortal, because we are not.
No.
And I wonder if it's actually impossible. I mean, I don't know. I was reading Neil Gaiman's Sandman books. Have you read those? He has Morpheus, the god of dreams, as a character, and magnificent though they are, it's actually the characters that human readers, I think, empathise with most.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's the case, if the immortals here aren't as sympathisable with as, say, the characters like Holly, who are mortal like us. If they aren't as sympathisable with, then it might be my fault, or it might actually be in the nature of the beast. They're kind of aliens.
Yes. Yes.
And Spock's a great creation, but he's a Vulcan. It's actually the humans that kind of they are our eyeballs in the narratives. Gosh, that was 35 minutes before I mentioned Star Trek, which is maybe a record.
Well, part of Richard Cheeseman's damning review of Crispin Hershey's book states, the fantasy subplot clashes so violently with the book's state of the world pretensions, I cannot bear to look. So I feel that perhaps this is a sort of preemptive strike on your part of the Richard Cheesemans of the world.
Yeah, it is. Guilty as charged, really. It won't work because critics, I guess, know that it's, I mean, any critic worth his or her salt can spot a preemptive strike when they see it. But, so really your only defence is to not read reviews.
No. Do you read your reviews?
No.
I
I successfully stopped about 4 books in, noticing that even the good ones are wasps at the picnic of the calm mind. And so these days I get my agent to send me the, or I ask my agent, because he's a powerful man, I ask him very nicely, to send me the name of the publication or radio interview or wherever it appeared, and the word positive, mixed, or disobliging. And if it's positive or disobliging, I want the name.
Because they'll be in the next book, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, revenge.
That was, yes, if it's positive, then I just like to know so that if I ever meet them at a party, I'm not in ignorance of the fact they've said something nice about me.
And you don't need to put cocaine in their luggage.
No. I let Crispin Hershey do that for me. However, I do have a slightly childish form of revenge, which is to change their name slightly, but I make it scan. I give it the same number of syllables. So they'll never quite know if it's them or not. If they know, then it's war. But if they don't know, then they will go to their graves, not knowing if this. And I also make something horrible happen to them, like Richard Cheeseman, and they'll never quite know if it's them or not. And it's petty, but it makes me feel better.
Dystopias.
Dystopias. They make much better stories than utopias, I have to say.
Well, there is always that, that's true. But I feel there's this trope with science fiction writers that the future is always, in and of itself, dystopian, in an Orwellian sense. I mean, there seems to be, there's very little sense of hope in future writing. Do you think this is Ursula Le Guin, I've actually got this quote from her, she says, "Hard times are coming. We'll want writers who see alternatives to how we live now, can see through our fear and its obsessive technologies to other ways of being and even imagine real grounds for hope." She's saying things are tough, and I think that, of course, a story needs conflict. But does it always have to be a dystopian vision?
No. I have deep respect for Ursula Le Guin, and actually she's written the one good utopia that anyone's ever written, I think, The Dispossessed. But even that is a utopian built from, as has been said, the crooked timber of humanity. It's a very flawed utopia.
Yeah.
And in a way, it only exists because the planet on which it's set is so poor that anarchic cooperation is necessary for survival, really. It's either that or nothing. Life's so marginal there.
Is that not more or less what we're facing here?
Yeah. I think the tendency to dystopia is understandable.
So do I. It doesn't take much to imagine
feeding
things going horribly
some quite
wrong.
scary chickens
Yes.
that are going to come home to roost in our children's lives.
And you're worried about that too, I can tell as a writer. You feel part of your mission is to politically, to point out the political failings and some of the problems that we are about to have happen to us.
I don't view myself as an activist in the real world, but maybe within my little writer's shell, maybe I am. But it's not so much as a writer; it's just as a dad. I got these kids. It's no longer enough for the world to be okay till roughly 2050. I need to be okay until about 2080 for their sake. And if grandchildren come along, it just goes on into the 22nd century.
Yeah.
Which is also speeding towards us faster than we think. So, I don't know, when you become a dad or when you become a parent, you sort of maybe connect with Gaia, with the planet, with our life support system, and do you have a bigger stake in it than you did before. I have these anxieties, and they feed into what I write, I guess.
I put this question on Facebook because that's how you know things, of course, in the modern world.
Of course.
And how the world works. And I did get some interesting responses from some of my friends who suggested that it might be a male thing to think in terms of dystopia and more a female perspective to be more utopian.
What about Margaret Atwood?
Well, Margaret Atwood has written some pretty bleak, yeah, right. But
yeah, maybe it would be good. I don't know. I think you need someone who's more widely read than me to give a really authoritative answer, perhaps.
Yeah.
I'd probably disagree, though.
Okay,
I'd say it's a
alright.
human thing
Okay.
rather than a gender-orientated thing.
Because we are, in a way, if you're living in the first world, I mean, look around, we're living in this most magnificent place. Things are actually really good. In fact, they've probably never been better in many ways.
Oh, we live like gods.
We live like gods.
Compared to 100 years ago, even.
Yes.
60 years ago, we live until we're 80 if we're lucky.
Yeah.
And
Why are we so convinced that the future will be bleak?
Because we have so much to lose. Maybe.
Yeah.
We got the internet. We got. Yeah. Well, okay, not a
the
great
internet
example.
is amazing. I mean, like when you think about it, the internet has connected people in a way that was never possible before. If you've got a phone, you can connect into all of human history. That's never happened before. That's
No.
extraordinary.
My phone on silent mode just buzzed in my pocket. I think it's my wife phoning from Ireland. If you told that to Captain Cook, he would think you were, well, what?
A god.
A god? A liar?
A liar, yeah.
So we do have all this to lose. We've got a
And we
long,
know
long,
that
long way to fall.
We do, but we know how, in some ways, we also have the knowledge, possibly, to do things differently, to do things better. You know, renewable energy is something that we can think about. We don't have to have the oil crisis turn the planet into a wasteland. It may be a new beginning. One door shuts, another one opens. I mean, I know I'm Pollyanna. I can tell. You're looking at me like I'm Pollyanna. But I feel that there's, as a writer, as a father, could you possibly think of writing not a dystopian future as a sci-fi writer?
Yes. And ultimately, dystopias don't get you anywhere as a father, as an activist, as a human, even if they make decent narratives as a writer. So, and the human does inform the writer. I tend to say on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays I'm a pessimist about our future, but that leaves 4 against 3.
So it's always best to have lunch with you on a Tuesday.
Yeah, or the weekend.
Or the weekend, yes.
If you're free, Suzanne.
Power is another one of your central themes. One of the characters in Bone Clocks is Immaculée Constantine, and she's actually a baddie in the book. Well, she's on the dark side. But she describes power as
from
crack
her point
cocaine.
of view, she's just surviving.
She's just
from
normal,
her point of view.
Yeah,
It always really bothered me. What do the stormtroopers in Star Wars say to their wives? I mean, do they sort of
when they came
say,
home at night?
yes, we're going to work for evil Darth Vader on the evil Death Star? I mean, it's ridiculous. As far as they're concerned, they're just doing their jobs. And it's a point of view. You know, they're sort of bringing order where there is chaos. So that's the same for the of the anchorites in the book as well. As far as they're concerned, they're just surviving.
Yeah.
And think of all the animals we've eaten if we're not vegetarians to survive unnecessarily. I mean, there's 7 billion people. They only take one every year or so. You know, it's not many. Anyway, sorry.
Doing the world a favour.
Sort of.
She says that power is crack cocaine for your ego and battery acid for your soul.
Power is crack cocaine for your ego, battery acid for your soul. I wonder if she agrees with that. What do you think?
Well, I feel that you are trying to tell us that power has an element of corruption inevitably within it.
Usually, yes.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? I mean, that's far from an original observation. But
No.
But yes.
Is it eternally valid? I mean, you know, Dr. Henry Goose says, the weak are meat, the strong do eat. So there's a sort of sense that this is an eternal occurrence, in fact, that part of the dystopian reality is that power will always necessarily work for evil, not good.
Maybe a universal truth more than an eternal occurrence, or a truth that recurs. It does, you don't need a deep or muscular intellect to be able to apply this to a host of ancient, contemporary, and probably future political events, from empire to ponytail pulling.
Ponytail pulling? Oh, is that...
That's a bit unfair.
Are you referring to the New Zealand Prime Minister?
Yeah, well, moi? Power is a thing I think about a lot. It's there in all of my books. It's one of my archetypal themes. It actually pops its head up in every book if I try to get rid of it or exile it. You have these archetypal themes, and they're pretty much in everything you write. The difference is whether you make them a major or a minor thematic presence, and power is one of mine I'm kind of stuck with. Why, I don't know. Maybe being a stammering, nervous, bookish kid in a fairly rough school made power at an early age a matter of survival, or made thinking about it a matter of survival.
You're a hippie, really, aren't you? A hippie, deep down.
Nothing wrong with that. I was watching enough of a Game of Thrones when I was writing the Bone Clocks, and I admire it for many, many reasons, but maybe chief amongst them are these little seminars you get on power every episode or so, when a number of people just sat around a table. This is between the sex and the violence. Sat around a table, usually a Lannister is present, and yet these glorious, short, pithy dialogues about power, and maybe they sneaked into my book.
Maybe the other way around. Maybe your book snuck into Game of Thrones.
I wouldn't make that claim. I think Mr. Martin knows exactly what he's doing and doesn't need any help from me.
I was just wondering if there are any moments or phases of the creative process that you really look forward to and savour.
Any moments in the creative process that I look forward to and savour?
Finishing.
The moment I press send and it goes to my editor, and I celebrate by having a can of Guinness on my own, watching a DVD. That's a lovely feeling. The final 3 or 4 weeks are just not hell in the sense of the shoe factory in Bangladesh that made these, but kind of in my own first world way. It's really hard, and you neglect your bodily hygiene, you don't cook, you ask your wife to do the washing up, please, because I've got to do this, and all right, you owe me one. And it's really nice when it's gone. However, that's not a very Jack Kerouac kind of answer, is it? Starting off's good. You got a lovely blank moleskin that hasn't got any of the crap from your last book polluting it. It was lovely to take off the cellophane and give it a kiss. And, here we go. That's nice. Drawing the herringbone, a diagram, kind of a little sort of flow chart with things coming off it for different scenes. That's where I start. It's kind of my key into the blank page. I'm thinking about the structure of the next thing. Those just writing sentences there, and you sort of.
You don't get afraid of the blank page. You don't fear the blank page. You don't have that moment when you think, "What am I going to say?"
No, you just write a letter from the character to yourself because you're not
there
afraid of.
There's the tip for everybody. Write a letter from your character.
As Hershey was saying, actually,
very good advice actually from Hershey.
Sort of what I believe.
Yes.
The best part's actually a sentence. You're just working on a sentence and medium length, and you've got these ideas, maybe describing something, or maybe it's a bit of a dialogue from someone you like or don't like, and you sort of sentence, subject, verb, object. Let's make it a bit Yoda-like, and maybe make it rearrange it a little, or maybe not, or sort of there's a word, a combination. Had one in an interview today. Someone described Hugo Lamb as an Oxbridge huckster. Lovely. Never seen Oxbridge and huckster combined. Put those together there, and then finish. No. Let's end. Let's not end there. Let's have a comma and an adverb at the end. And it's just great. And then it's have you seen that film Shakespeare in Love? It's hugely grandiose to compare yourself to Shakespeare, not to mention idiotic and suicidal. But the bit I think every writer anywhere would get in that film. It's my favourite line in the whole film. He's working, he's writing, he's got his quill, and he's doing a line and from Hamlet or something, and he's got to the end and he just puts it down and he looks at it for a moment and he says, "God, I'm good." and it's that. It's that. And you've got this sentence, and it doesn't matter how harsh the critic is, how unjustified it is, it doesn't matter how much someone hates you, what you've done to them, what they imagine you've done to them. They can't get you on this line because it's just brilliant. It's just imperishable. It's perfect. That's the best part. That's the best part. And you get a few of those lines in the same paragraph, and you have sort of an Amazon 4-star upwards review of a paragraph. That's really nice, and occasionally get a few of those in a scene. And no one's ever written the perfect scene. Conrad comes close, but Nabokov comes close, but no one's ever written the perfect scene. There's a few perfect paragraphs knocking around in the canon, but a 75% perfect scene, that's pretty good. You get up into the 80% sometimes. I hope one day before I die I'll get a 90% perfect scene. But just working there, and that's a deep, deep, deep form of fulfillment. I love my job. Thanks for your question, and good luck with your own book.
Hi.
Hi.
I was just wanting to ask, do you ever go back to your earlier work, and what do you think of it now?
No, I can't. Occasionally it happens that sort of my Estonian publisher brings out my third book or something, or that was Cloud Atlas, they've all brought out the third book, but brings out Number 9 Dream or Black Swan Green or something, and I'm thinking of something in Estonia, so I agree to go, and then I need to read it, and oh God, it hurts. It's so mannered, it's so precious, there's too many metaphors.
Too many adverbs?
It's the wrong adverb at the end. It's not too many, but the wrong adverb. And I don't want to change it. And in fact, sometimes I do. The thing I read out just then, it wasn't exactly as it's printed. I kind of edit it on the hoof. They're never done. But you can do nothing about it apart from organise the biggest product recall since Toyota's dodgy gearbox. And then you can't do it. So no, never. But I'm in good company. Hitchcock never saw a film he made. He's just kind of always on to the next one. In fact, that's where I hide from the reactions to the next, to the last book. I kind of hide in being busy with the next one. It's also true, incidentally, again for aspiring writers, send your plot synopsis and first 3 chapters to agents and publishers by all means, but never wait for the reply. Assume you'll never hear from them again. Immediately get to work on the next one and forget it. It's not wasted, it'll come in handy. These archetypal themes I mentioned earlier will reprise themselves, and you'll be using stuff, but forget it, it's gone, it's done, it's finished. And always look forward.
Yet you bring characters back.
I do. This is the one exception. But I actually go back. I advertise job vacancies in-house for new roles. And if I find someone that fits, that will bring something useful, that has a good CV from an earlier book, then I'll go back and see what they were up to in the previous book, just so I can sync things up. But apart from that, I never go back. But valid exception to the rule. Don't look back. Good luck. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you believe in reincarnation?
Do I believe in reincarnation? I'm an agnostic. I would like to believe in the possibility. I believe in its elegance. It would be lovely, like Groundhog Day, just to come back and have another go at it, and to sort of, crawl yourself up the slope of enlightenment. I believe in it metaphorically. I think in the course of a lifetime we die metaphorically when something traumatic happens to us, when a loved one dies, when we move, when we make a break with the past, and for every death there's a rebirth, and there's a new us, hopefully an older one. Hopefully a wiser one, definitely an older one. Certainly a greyer one, certainly a more lined one. But metaphorically, yes. Literally, which is of course what you're asking, I don't know. Do you believe in reincarnation? I hope you're right, and I'll see you next time around. And you say, aha, told you.
So, if you ever just write for pleasure without the final end game of publishing, just for you.
Great, I've never been asked that before. Do I write for pleasure without the end game of wanting it published? They're the same. The closest I get is probably Letters to My Mum. And I've accepted one odd commission this year from Norway. There's a British artist, I should remember her name, but you could Google it online if you're curious enough. It's an artist who is asking writers to write stories that we write, hand over on a memory stick. We have to sign that we haven't kept a copy, that it's gone forever. And she is growing trees somewhere in Sweden that will be turned into wood pulp that in 100 years from now, in 2114. Margaret Atwood's done the first one, and if Margaret Atwood, I was asked to do the second year, she's going to ask one author a year, or her descendants will ask one author a year to write a story. The trees will grow, be turned into wood pulp, and 100 years from now, after I'm dead, these stories will be published. So that's the closest I've done. That's the closest I've got to writing something that will never be read, except by maybe my grandchildren, if I have any, and maybe your grandchildren. Who knows? But that's the closest I've got to. Thanks. That was a good one. Well, they're all good ones, but that made me think.
What do you think is an essential aspect in creating a well-rounded and memorable character?
An essential aspect in creating a well-rounded and memorable character. Thank you. They vary, don't they? There's lots of well-rounded, memorable characters in literature. That's why we read, really. We need to make at least something likable about them. And then we need to taunt the reader with the fear that bad things will happen to this person who we're emotionally invested in. That works from the miller in Chaucer, the Gawain in the Gawain poet, in Gawain and the Green Knight, through all of Shakespeare's sympathetic characters, through Dickens, through to Game of Thrones. We care and we're worried when bad things happen to them, as inevitably happens to all of the Starks. Except Arya, who's gotten away on the boat. Yes. And Bran, the one with the animal, kind of with the eyeballs that flip back. Mixed morality as well, I think, is at the heart. Give your sympathetic, make your angels a little bit demonic, make your demons a little bit angelic. That's necessary, because we are, aren't we? As Solzhenitsyn points out, the line between good and evil runs down every single human heart. It's not between us, it's inside us. That's good to remember. We need an hour and a beer, and I'll tell you more, but I think those 2 points are maybe good starting points. You're probably doing this already, you probably know it already. And what Hershey says in the book. Find out.
You read the Crispin Hershey chapter, it's very instructive.
These letters to yourself in their voice. I think if you do that, you will find your way. And of course, your creation will also be unique. Your creation will also have something that you've never read before, never in anybody else. Ideally, the wind's blowing in the right direction. Then it will be something I haven't thought of, because the character's yours and not mine. Good luck, though. You've done 85,000 words. About how many more to go, do you reckon? Are you about halfway? Near the end? I can't hear a word, but... Yeah? Good luck with the rest of the journey, anyway. Thanks for your question.
So can you please thank the
thank
fabulous
you.
David Mitchell?
Oh, really, thank you very much.